I'm Jay Kingley, co founder and CEO of Maven Advisors, your host of Fractionals Unplugged. I'm joined today by Shelley Majors of Boardwalk Human Resources Consulting. Shelley, not surprisingly, is a fractional chief human resources officer. She works with companies typically 50 to 300 employees or 10 to 150 million in revenue that have outgrown their basic HR setup. She's based in Dallas, Texas. Welcome, Shelley.
Hi, Jay. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Are you feeling undervalued and stuck in the frustrating cycle of an inconsistent pipeline and income, despite consistently delivering exceptional results for your clients? Maven's proven 97% done-for-you client acquisition system transforms your expertise into a steady income of $300,000 to $500,000 a year, providing lasting financial security and establishing you as the go-to resource for your clients' toughest challenges. Join Jay Kingley, CEO of Maven, and his guests as they share actionable insights on today's episode of the Fractionals Unplugged podcast.
Shelley, when you first meet a founder CEO with 50 to 300 employees, it is important for you to give them some context so that they know how to talk to you about their issues and challenges. I'm going to give you a maximum of 60 seconds to give just enough context so that our audience understands where you are coming from. Go!
I am here to help them keep and retain top talent. I provide strategic services. I am the right-hand gal. I can help them with any HR issues that I have because of my 27 years of HR experience. I am able to get into a company to look and diagnose any employee issues that they may have.
So, what are some of the key HR and people challenges that these companies have?
A lot of times it tends to be culture. Another one is leadership. Leadership isn't always present. At the end of the day, a lot of organizations don't have the best leadership. It's communication from the top down, but it's also employee retention. Employees aren't as engaged as they used to be. They need to be more engaged. A lot of people aren't happy in their roles.
Culture is one of those words that everybody uses, and I think half the people have no idea what it means, and the other half have their own definitions, none of which align. So, from an HR perspective, take us through what culture means to a company.
So it's funny because when I think about culture, when it talks about the values that a company holds, it talks about how the company treats its employees, and I've experienced this firsthand. I've always told myself I can work for any company until you get in there, and even as an employee, you think, well, ethically, they're not quite how I would do things, or I don't like the way they treat people. So it has a lot to do with how people are treated, how they view their employees, and just how the company looks from the inside out.
Someone a lot wiser than me, I granted not necessarily a high bar, told me that culture is not what you say, but it is the behaviors you tolerate and the behaviors you prohibit. And from that, the organization will define what that culture really is. And that always struck me as a different but completely on point description. Because I think a lot of CEOs think it's about their value statement, think it's about their mission statement, think it's about the platitudes, as opposed to looking deeply at the behaviors that thrive in that organization, because ultimately that is your culture, those behaviors you tolerate and you prohibit. So if we took those challenges that you mentioned, and if you had to boil it down to what I like to call the most important, urgent, and valuable problem that these companies are struggling to resolve with respect to HR, what is that killer thing that's getting in their way?
It would truly be the treatment of their employees. And I agree, it's a lot of the unseen, the unsaid, the unheard. I had a client of mine that I worked with that he would get on calls and scream and holler and swear at employees There were a couple of times he would swear at me, and I thought, this is unacceptable behavior. If he's swearing at me and I'm an outside person, I can just imagine how these employees are feel. And they just took it. It just, well, we need the job. You're making $12 an hour. What do you need this job for? You don't need to be treated like this. And so that's really what it is.
So, given that these companies, despite their best efforts, are struggling with this problem, this has got to get in the way of business outcomes that these founders and CEOs want, but they're not getting because they have not figured out how to get rid of the problem. So, talk to us a little bit, Shelley, about what do you see the outcomes that they're failing to achieve because of these people issues?
I think what the outcome of what they're failing to achieve is they don't really see that leadership or they might be the problem, and that they themselves have to look at themselves and fix the problem, or look at leadership and fix the problem. It's not the employees. Yeah, you have a couple of bad employees every once in a while that you need to take care of. But at the end of the day, you have to really look at the leadership and say, okay, what can we do better? What can we improve? Because you're going to start to lose employees because of the treatment. And if it's the treatment and then you don't have great pay and then you may have benefits that aren't great, why would anybody want to work for your company? I also had another client who said he wanted to be one of the best companies to work for. I laughed internally because there was no way. I saw how he treated his employees. He didn't have good benefits, and the rate of pay that he paid his people was really low. And without changing all of those factors, there was no way he was going to be one of these best employers to work for. But he didn't see that when I told him these are all the factors that need to.
I think that type of situation is far more common than not. Now, the urgent part of the most important, urgent, and valuable problem means that these founder CEOs are trying to fix this problem. They are trying to resolve the issue. So, what is it that you typically see them doing when they're trying to fix this on their own?
When they're trying to fix this on their own, what I see them doing is taking a step back and looking at themselves. And really, that's how you have to do it. You have to look at yourself. You have to look at how you lead. You have to look at your company and everything that you're offering at your company. But really, it talks about, how are you as a leader? Are you a good person to your employees? At the end of the day, are you a good person? And that's really what it is. And so when you start to look internally at yourself, then you can start to say, am I a good leader? Yes or no? Check that box. Do I treat my employees well? Yes or no? Check that box. Do I pay them decently, a decent wage, a living wage? Yes or no? Check that box. And if you're checking boxes no, then that's where you need to start to reevaluate those issues.
So, we talked about that most important, urgent, and valuable problem. And so often that are symptoms. And we often chase the symptoms without understanding the cause. So, share your insight into the root cause that's driving that critical people problem that either the founder CEO doesn't understand, or perhaps they think they know what it is, but they're misinformed.
I think probably the cause is just that they're overwhelmed. A lot of CEOs and founders who are starting or running businesses may not necessarily know how to run a business successfully. And so they're running it the best way that they can with the skills and the tools that they are given, without knowing that they may need to take something from a different box, or they need to change the way that they view something. And so they just run their business kind of like they run their life. And you can't necessarily run your business like you run your life. So that to me may be the issue. You don't have the help that you need, or someone that says at the end of the day, you need to look at how you're treating your people, because sometimes they're surrounded by yes people, and yes people just do whatever you want them to do. If there's that fear, if people are afraid of you, then no one's going to say, hey, you're the problem.
So, now that you've talked about this underlying cause of being overwhelmed, what are the things that these founder CEOs need to do differently than what they are doing so they can get their business out of what I like to call struggle city and get into Success City?
A long time ago, I read the book and I don't even remember what the book was, but I always remember you have to have the people in the right seats on the bus. And so you surround yourself with people that know how to do the job that you've hired them for, that can give you the advice that you need and advice that makes sense. If you're going to make a decision on something and that decision isn't good for the company, then you need to have someone that says, hey, this isn't the best decision for the company. Maybe we should look at doing something else. Instead of just saying no, offer solutions. And a lot of times people don't offer solutions. And that's why a lot of founders and CEOs don't really listen to what other people have to say. Come with solutions and advice.
Jim Collins, Good to Great. He's the one that talked about get the right people on the right seats on the right bus.
Yeah, I probably have that in my bookcase.
We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to learn a bit about Shelley.
Is your pipeline inconsistent and rarely full? Do you struggle to stand out and communicate your unique value? The lead generation you've done or had others do for you has largely been a waste of time and money. You're stressed out and feeling guilty, worried that you're not living up to your own expectations or supporting those who matter most to you. Maven offers the only 97% done-for-you client acquisition service trusted by top fractional executives and consultants. Our proven system takes care of your go-to-market strategy, lead generation, and sales, turning your expertise into a full pipeline and a high-converting sales process. With Maven, you'll achieve a predictable income, financial security, and the confidence you'll never have to take a job working for someone else. Contact j.kingley at fractionalmaven.com to discover how Maven can help you build a thriving business working with clients who value your insights and are a joy to work with.
Welcome back. We're talking to Shelley Majors, a fractional Chief Human Resources Officer with Boardwalk Human Resources Consulting. She works with companies with 50 to 300 employees that are roughly 10 to 150 million in revenue. Shelley, let's find out a bit more about you, and I want to start with one of my favorite questions. What happened in your life? It could be personal, could be professional, that most explains why you're doing what you do today.
I have worked for companies with bad leaders. I have worked for companies with good leaders. And I told myself when I got to the point where I started my business that I wanted to choose who I worked with. I didn't want to go to work every day with the fear of, am I going to get in trouble today? Did I make a mistake? Am I going to get fired? And if I speak out, what's going to happen? I've been labeled as aggressive when I'm being passionate about HR because I don't think you should fire someone because it's not legal. Dealing with that stuff made me realize that owning my own business, I'm able to choose who I work with.
What's one thing that few people who know you well would be surprised to learn?
I am very emotional when it comes to HR. So every time I would fire someone, even if it was they fired themselves, I would go into my office and cry about the situation because I knew people's backstories. I was always been a relationship builder. People are very comfortable around me. I'm able to really get to know people. And that's what makes me very, very good at my job. Not the fact that I'm always crying because I'm not, but the fact that I'm really good at my job when it comes to HR. I am able to get to the root of a lot of problems. I was also able to know things that people shouldn't know that I would bring to CEOs. And they were like, how did you know that? Don't worry how I know it. Just know that I know it.
So what's next for you over the coming 12 months?
What's next for me is I'm going to continue to grow my business. I want to develop some partnerships. I want to really start to also focus on AI. We have a love-hate relationship with AI, but it's coming. So we have to embrace it. And so I want to focus on some AI and integrate some of that into my business as well. And, get to the point where I'm able to hire more employees.
Terrific. So I'm sure we have people that are listening. They're going to want to reach out and continue the conversation. What's the best way for our audience to contact you?
You can find me on LinkedIn under Shelley Majors. I also have a LinkedIn for my business, Boardwalk Human Resources Consulting. You can reach out to me via email boardwalkhrconsulting@outlook.com. And my website is boardwalkhr.com.
I will put all of Shelley's contact information in our show notes to make it easy for everybody to reach out to you, Shelley. And I want to thank you for being a guest on our Fractionals Unplugged show. Be sure to subscribe to both our podcast on all the major platforms and our YouTube channel for our videos. Use the power of your one big idea to differentiate you from everyone else who does what you do. Enjoy a pipeline consistently filled with clients you want to work with who value what it is that you do. Choose the freedom, flexibility, and control that comes from having your own fractional or consulting business and enjoy being financially secure and professionally fulfilled. Until next time.